So let's take a moment, by the way, since you are here this long, let's take a moment and for those of you watching on YouTube, especially, take a moment and like the broadcast, okay? So we have quite a number of us here tonight than the number of likes on the broadcast. So you can take it to 1,000 if you can before we wrap it up later. So yeah, thank you, thank you. I like that. You need to do it just once, okay? Once you like the broadcast once, don't worry again. Just keep engaging. So from still that chamber, right? The Congress, another Congress woman feels like Donald Trump's way of going it is like that of a bully, like the other person. With some extra.
I appreciate the chairman's passion on this and his long work on Nigeria. I think it's a distortion to say that what we're trying to say is that there's nothing to see here. In fact, there is something to see here. There is very real conflict and violence that we need to address. I've been working on addressing conflict in Nigeria since 2013, 2014, when I was part of the counter Boko Haram strategy at the State Department. The violence impacting both Christian and Muslim communities is real, and the Nigerian government can and should do more to address it. I was horrified to learn of the killing of 2 people and the kidnapping of the pastor and a worshiper at a church in Kwara State. And this came only a few days after, as the chairman mentioned, criminal bandits kidnapped 25 girls in Kebbi State. But it is counterproductive to adopt oversimplistic narratives about the multiple complex overlapping security challenges and violence across the country. The victims in the Kebbi State kidnapping were all Muslim girls. So violence affects everyone, and false narratives perpetuate harmful stereotypes and motivate tensions and violence based on religious identity. Distorting what's happening into a solely religious narrative erases the real drivers of violence and makes it harder to implement effective solutions. And it can fuel violence against the very groups the Trump administration claims it wants to protect. That's why I'm alarmed by President Trump's rhetoric about this violence and threats to go into Nigeria, guns a-blazing, and to wipe out terrorists. We are already receiving reports of increased tensions between Christian and Muslim populations following this rhetoric. President Trump's threat is reckless, and any unilateral military action in Nigeria would be illegal. Congress has not authorized force in Nigeria to protect Christians, and any action without Nigeria's consent violates international law. We also know that a military-first response won't actually address the violence and will do very little to protect Christian communities.
So that's their own argument. Similar talking points. America, Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about Christians. He's just coming to take your resources. You know what I mean? By the time they come in now, it's not just going to be the northern Nigeria. They could even go as far as blowing Dangote refinery. Oh, do you know that with what Trump just did, the Christians and Muslims, there is tension among them right now because of Trump. These are kind of like, I don't know, they are like Democrat politicians a talking point to me. You know what I mean? Like that fear mongering, that kind of, you know, I don't know, maybe just do that with Trump only, by the way. Nigerians are in the hands of their killers. Their government is in bed with the terrorists. Every intel shown that the government will rather placate the terrorists than go after them. It's not because Nigeria is not capable of going after these terrorists. They are capable. But soldiers are being told what to do. And among all the things they are telling them to do is just to sit duck. Just sit down there. They are waiting for order. Terrorists will be migrating like this. Nigerian soldiers will have a base here. And the next thing is they will be shooting in the air to tell the terrorists that they are here. They shouldn't come here. And then the soldiers will be hearing the attacks on the neighboring communities, but they won't move. How can you normalize that? And then limited that to, so. And I'll tell you something. Nigeria's case will become a likely booby trap for Trump. Remember, they impeached him twice the last time. So right now, if they do their midterm election, and if the Republican loses the leader of the House, I think, or they lose both, Donald Trump will be impeached again by saying he has committed an international crime because of Nigeria. So it's a booby trap somehow. However, it is Trump who will likely still do what he has to do, right? So Riley, the guy that Rebadom and others traveled all the way from Nigeria to go and meet and beg, explaining themselves to him, to beg Trump to hold on. Riley categorically told the same hearing that Nigerians don't trust their government. That's another thing.
A case that just happened recently in the Plateau State. We had a pastor there who had warned the Nigerian government and said, "We are under imminent threat. We are going to face an attack if you all don't send some forces here in the next 24 hours. We need help. Please come here and help us." The Nigerian government not only ignored it, they literally put out a press release about it, calling it fake news and hyperbole and being overblown. Well, 13 people lost their lives the next day. 13 people murdered. Christians murdered. I don't know how much an early warning system is going to work if people aren't listening to warnings that are literally over the phone. I'm not sure. So I'd say to the Nigerian government, you're going to have to, and we keep using the term, prioritize this because it's certainly a priority for President Trump. And I think many of us on this panel here today on this dais. But I just wanted to highlight that because that is the type of behavior that has to change, because, and to your point of people not trusting the government, how can you trust a government that doesn't even show up when you ask them to? How are you supposed to trust your life with something like that? You can't. Obviously, you can't. And I think that's why it's incumbent upon the Nigerian government to work with us in coordination and cooperation to address these issues. Obviously, there's going to be some type of bifurcated approach to this. The Fulani Islamic militant issue in the middle belt of the country is distinctly different from what you face with Boko Haram and ISIS in the northeast of the country, and that's probably more of a question of kinetic military options rather than some of the other things that maybe State Department could do more in the middle belt, backed up by some of those same type of at least military deterrence options in that part of the country. But I think it does need to be a kind of whole of government approach to this, but we have to have the Nigerian government as a willing partner in all of this, because the president is, as Chairman Smith just said, extremely serious about this. I'm extremely serious about this. I stay up at night. It's hard to sleep sometimes thinking about this, and I pray all of this, because the president is, as Chairman Smith just said, extremely.
So he categorically said that he finds it difficult to sleep at night, especially when he's thinking about this. And that's one thing about all this whole story. Okay. Sometimes when you read them in the news, you see all those gory pictures and all of them. They don't really do justice to the story. Okay. When you are open to the evidence, the killings, the brutality, then you begin to realize that, but this whole thing, it seems preventable. All it's going to take was that, when these armed terrorists are around, you need a superior firepower. The only people who have that capacity legally in Nigeria to have superior firepower than the military, than these terrorists, is your military. Ordinarily, your police should be able to handle these guys. Here, Nigeria police. Like internal security, they feel me. Internal security, there should be this special police force. They can give them any name, SWAT or anything. Special police force that can undo things like this. You will barely see the military on the streets here in the UK. I have seen scary looking police officers, armed police officers, come around my area. I have watched them on TV, responded to terrorist attack in London. These were policemen, they were not military, trained. Nigeria is a country of over 200 million people. according to them. Do you really think a police force that brags of having over 200,000 personnel, right, couldn't really train a special police force of 10,000 whose job is to respond to any internal security threat, especially the one that borders on terrorism inside Nigeria? You don't even have that. Rather, their best trained police officers, well behaved police officers, they are attached to your VIPs as personal guards, wasting away. So then your military is next to have that superior firepower. So it is not the local vigilantes, it is not the local people that will be able to respond to over 200 guns, 300 guns. Do you understand? It is your military, in this case, that has that superior firepower. But when the people are left vulnerable for hours, that is deliberate. You don't get it. When terrorists comes in and they kill and kill and kill and destroy and burn and all of that, and they lasted for like 4 or 5 hours, no emergency response, no nothing. In most cases, there are military or soldiers next, not far from the area. But because the order from above did not tell them to go after the terrorist, if they fire one gunshot, that soldier will be court-martialed. That's what the woman said, the wife of a soldier. Even if they decide to just go after them without the order, they will court-martial all of them. They will lock them up. That's the situation. So if your president is not aware of that, if the chief of defense staff is not aware of that, then what exactly are they aware of? Like, what exactly are their intels that makes this whole fight more or less like, industrialized, so to say? Here is another one. I told you it's going to be a long night, but the people who feel so concerned about these killings like this are the Americans in this instance. And they want Americans, what do you call it, to get involved. So what should Tinubu do? This whole thing shouldn't even make any kind of like a noise. I have said this before, right? I said if I was a Tinubu, we all believe that the reason why he can't go after the terrorist was because he already promised Boko Haram and the Boko Haram's backers, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, that he would continue from wherever Boko Haram stopped. Now, Boko Haram is dead. Tinubu is keeping that promise by withholding the political will to go after these terrorists. So if I was him, well, since Donald Trump is involved, I would just be like, you know what, call this some of my innermost guys and tell them to go and work with the Americans. We won't want America to come in and bomb anywhere, just like Donald Trump is proposing. But this time around, it's going to be like, right? They are collaborating with the Americans, deploy another means, and go after these terrorists properly. Something that can't be blamed on Tinubu. She can say, what do you want me to do? I did my best to protect you, but I can't do anything anymore. So in that regard, this terrorism will at least subsided because Nigeria will be involved. So in that sense, right, once they push these terrorists back, people begin to go back to their own communities from IDP camps, rebuilding their lives. People will see it. The reform that Tinubu is trying to force you to accept and all of these other things, maybe they will begin to actually make sense. Do you know the reason why the failure of this APC, as it keeps growing, their failure is so open, so sane, is because majority of the people who are mostly begging for money today, begging for food today, right? They have ended up being the victims of the already destroyed economic base of Nigeria. People who used to grow their own food, people who used to grow and even sell part of what they, grew, right, are now living in IDP camps or dead, right? The farms are becoming shorter and shorter. The people are now mostly like depending on imported food. So the mainstay of Nigeria economy, agriculture, the agricultural sector has been so affected, so depleted that Nigeria economy that crashed, the one they are now sort of like managing on loans, borrowings and all of that, right? The wreck that this terrorism has caused Nigeria is actually so grounded that if Tinubu himself cares about the country or cares about you, the right thing to do is to even roll out the red carpet for them and say, listen, let's work together. Let me get rid of these people. Is that too much to ask for? I don't think so, if you are not complicit. Watch this.
I'll start over. Chairman Smith, Ranking Member Jacobs, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to join my colleague, Senior Bureau Official Pratt, to discuss the Trump administration's decision to redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern in accordance with the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998. President Trump's decisive action to designate Nigeria as a CPC made clear that the United States stands ready to champion the rights of Christians and protect them from religious persecution. The religious freedom situation in Nigeria is well documented in the annual IRF reports. The IRF Act, designed by Congress nearly 3 decades ago, establishes religious freedom as a U.S. foreign policy priority and mandates that the president call out religious freedom violators as a reflection of the importance our nation places on America's first freedom. As my colleague stated, the levels of violence and atrocities committed against Christians in Nigeria are appalling. Particularly in the Middle Belt, these attacks directly target Christian populations. Ample witness testimonies have confirmed attackers used religious language during their attacks and specifically targeted Christians for killing, abduction, and rape. It is clear Nigerians are being attacked and killed because of their faith, and the Nigerian government must uphold its duty to protect them. The United States stands with civil society and religious actors brave enough to speak about the tragic violence and discrimination they face in Nigeria. When Bishop Wilfred Anagbe and Father Remigius Eyula testified before Chairman Smith's hearing last March about religious freedom, these 2 courageous religious leaders reported they received threats rather than protection from the Nigerian government. But the United States listened, and we will continue to listen and act until the Nigerian government protects religious freedom, strengthens its protections for vulnerable Christians, and holds perpetrators accountable. In addition to these failures, Nigerian officials also continue to prosecute individuals for alleged blasphemy, which stands in clear violation of Nigeria's obligation to safeguard free speech. Under the Sharia penal codes enforced in 12 of its states, Nigeria is one of only 8 countries in the world that allows for penalties up to execution for blasphemy, along with Iran and Pakistan, which have long been designated CPCs. When authorities detain individuals accused of blasphemy, the judicial process often takes years while they remain in prison, sometimes on death row. Mobs often take the law into their own hands with impunity. For example, in 2022, a mob killed Deborah Samuel Yakubu, a student of Shehu Shagari College of Education, Sokoto, in a heinous attack after she was accused of blasphemy. This young Christian woman's life was taken too soon, yet her murderers remain free. With horrifying reports of discrimination, abuse, torture, disappearance, and even the murder of individuals simply trying to practice their faith freely and safely, religious freedom is not an abstraction, but an obligation Nigeria must uphold. This administration has heard the steady, clarion call from civil society and religious actors about the pernicious impact of the violence on religious communities. The Nigerian government must protect religious freedom, strengthen protections of vulnerable Christians, hold perpetrators accountable, and make measurable progress toward ending this violence against Christians as well as any Nigerians persecuted for their faith. We greatly appreciate the committee's dedication to shedding light on the situation in Nigeria and support in advancing freedom, religious freedom, not just in Nigeria, but around the world. And I want to personally thank you, Chairman Smith, for your tireless efforts over the decades about religious freedom and, of course, other human rights abuses, including combating human trafficking. So thank you, Chairman Smith. I welcome your questions.
Thank you so very much.
Brilliant, isn't it? So, to point few things out, in Nigeria, you will never see the Attorney General of Nigeria rise up whenever these Sharia lunatics begin to act this funny. He won't say anything. He will just keep quiet. Because they are allowed to do that. Sentence somebody to death. Stay in prison for as many years as possible because of some bed sheets, some lunatics with a whole bed sheet rolled over their heads. In a country that was supposed to be a secular country, where whether you are a Christian or a Muslim, you should be able to live anywhere, everywhere, and practice whatever you want anywhere. But you know that's not true. When Deborah Samuel Yakubu was killed, the Nigerian government did not do PIM. The Attorney General of Nigeria did not get involved when all this madness was going on to actually set an example. There is a